Let me see, using computer audio. Where can I find that? Participants, churches.
If you think about it, they only received the complete Torah after 40 years in the desert, which happens to be Motzei Parashat Masei that we just read in Shul. So they didn't even have a complete Torah while they were running away from Har Sinai. But one thing they did know is that Torah, if they follow it, can make a difference in the world. So where did they run to? They ran to make a difference in the world. That is what Tikkun Olam is. We were given the Torah so that we can help change this world. You know, after Adam and Chava were kicked out of Gan Eden, Hashem gave them what they needed to survive. After the great flood, the Mabul, Hashem gave Noach what he needed to survive as well. But after Migdal Bavel, it's when Avraham Avinu came along. And Hashem decided that from here onwards, Lech Lecha, you go for yourself. It is up to you, to humankind, to make this world the best it can be. That is part of our jobs, to truly make a difference in this world by using our Torah and our wonderful Jewish community. Arieh Doobov is the son of our amazing Gabbai and Vaad member, Mervyn Doobov, and his wife, Ilana. Arieh works for the JDC, the Joint. He's involved with programs that deal with international development in developing countries and Israel's contribution to achieving the sustainable development goals for these countries. He leads a very, very important program called Tikkun Olam Ventures, which provides smallholder farmers in Africa with access to transformative Israeli technology. It's amazing how Israel can help the world, and Baruch Hashem, Arieh is in charge in bringing that to all these wonderful countries. Tonight, Arieh will be focusing on the country of Ethiopia. Now, the program helps to increase the productivity of the country, and by doing so, increase the well-being of the families. Avraham Avinu is known as Av Hamon Goyim, and this is what Arieh is helping to bring about in Ethiopia. He is very inspired by how determination on the part of the people being helped, combined with Israeli innovation, can bring meaningful change in lives of these people. So just to sum up, he is truly doing his part towards a Tikkun Olam. So Arieh, thank you so much, and I'm giving you the speaker. I will now mute myself. Erev Tov to everyone.
Good evening, everyone. It's thank you very much for making time to spend a few moments together this evening. Very, very best wishes from Tel Aviv. And before I start, I want to thank in particular Irene for initiating this invitation, and of course Ilana, my stepmother, for who actually asked me to do this. And of course, there's nothing that Ilana will ask me to do that I will not say yes to. So that was a very clever tactic on Irene's part, and it's a pleasure to be with you tonight and to spend a few minutes together. I'm going to share my screen before I get. Okay, the host has to enable screen sharing. The host has disabled participant screen sharing. Hello, host.
Try again.
Great, okay, thank you. Great, so what I'm looking to do in the coming minutes is three things. First, I want to say a few words about the JDC, or the Joint, the organization that I'm honored to work for. Secondly, I want to say a few words about why I'm doing what I'm doing personally in Africa on behalf of the Joint, and it very much synergizes with the rabbi's comments. And thirdly, and this will be the largest part of my talk this evening, I'll explain this particular program, Tikkun Olam Ventures, or as we call it, the work that JDC is doing on behalf of the Jewish people and of Israel firstly in Ethiopia. Just a technical point, I'm very glad to take questions in chat, and I'll look at any questions at the end of the presentation. You'll find a chat option at the bottom of your screen, and if you have questions, note them down whenever you wish, and I'll look at them at the end. So firstly, what is the Joint? I can give you the official history, which would start with this picture. This is a boardroom in New York City in 1914. I could go around the table and identify many of the people in this picture. This is the committee of the Joint. It's as I said, it's a picture from very illustrious people in this room, representing many different streams of American Jewry. But I'm not going to take that route. Instead of introducing the Joint through an official portrait like this, what I want to do is instead introduce the Joint as I came to learn about it, which starts with this portrait, which is from a different place and time, and it comes from my family's photo album. In this picture, you see my grandfather, Alfred. To the left, you see his son, Alfred. To the right, you see his nephew, Manfred, and the little girl in front of him, my mother, Suzanne. And I prefer to start with this portrait because I'll be able to tell the story of the Joint through the people whose lives were changed by the organization over 100 years. This picture was taken in Queensland, in northeastern Australia, in the late 1940s. And Siegfried Gans, my grandfather, and his family escaped Germany in the 1930s, and they escaped to a country, one of the few countries that they could enter, Australia in their case. But not all of my grandfather's family escaped. Many of them didn't survive war. But his nephew, who was to his right, Manfred, the taller of the two boys, survived the Holocaust, mostly in hiding, in ways that he never fully explained subsequently. Manfred just passed away a couple of months ago. He lived a long and full life. He passed away on the eastern coast of Australia in a beautiful location. One of the proudest moments of his life was that his granddaughter represented Australia in the Olympics. At the last Olympics, she's a world champion kayaker. But jumping back to this photograph, what is important is that in 1947, just after the war, he was practically an orphan. Like so many people who'd been displaced and whose lives had been changed by the war and by the Holocaust. And it was the JDC that enabled him to reunite with his uncle, my grandfather, and his family. And this is a document that our family has kept since that time. On the letterhead, you see the American Joint Distribution Committee, and you may not be able to see the type here, but it describes the costs of transporting him as a young boy from Germany to Australia, and the cost of $505 that the Joint paid for to enable his immigration, to enable his life to continue and for him to live a full and happy life in Australia. 50% of Australia's Jews were somehow touched by the joint, by the JDC. You may know that the Australian Jewish community has one of the highest percentages of Holocaust survivors amongst its number. And when the JDC recently did a study to learn about the history of that community, we found that, as I said, more than 50 Australian Jews were either directly touched by the joint or descendants of people who were affected by the joint. The joint helped my uncle Manfred, and the joint helped save lives and helped people rebuild lives after the Holocaust. Since 1914, when the joint was founded, the joint has helped in a massive way Jews and Israelis all over the world, starting in Palestine during a famine at the time of the First World War in 1914. The joint provided material support in the 1930s to Jews in the Soviet Union. The joint financed the Warsaw Ghetto. The joint helped Jews flee Europe. The joint operated displaced person camps. And I can continue to today, when the joint is very busy, very active in 60 countries, primarily in Israel, where we develop services to help vulnerable populations in Israel, all Israeli citizens, and in the former Soviet Union, where the joint is helping the population of the poorest Jews in the world, older adults who are living, older Jewish adults across the former Soviet Union who are living in poverty. So the joint, over that 100-year period, has many people, continues to touch many people, and I'm proud to be associated with its history, and I'm proud to be among its cadre. I'm delighted to see my old friend and my dear colleague, Jonathan Porat, on this call. Jonathan, you should all know, can give a much, much better presentation than I can about anything he wishes to speak about, from the joint to absolutely anything. Jonathan is a remarkable person who himself, for many years working for the joint, had a tremendous impact on Jews first in the Soviet Union and later in the former Soviet Union. So I'm especially delighted to see Jonathan here. So that was the first set of remarks about what is the joint. How did I get here? How did I find myself in the picture in front of you now? And that's a picture of quite a typical working meeting that I have in Ethiopia with farmers and with officials. I'm about 130 kilometers southwest of the capital city, Addis Ababa. So why am I doing what I'm doing? How did I find myself in this circle of farmers here? I want to come back to my mother, who you saw in the photograph earlier. You saw her as a little girl, and two people that are not in the picture, my father Mervyn and my stepmother Ilana. How did I get to be doing what I'm doing? They showed me, each of them in their different ways, that community service is a noble and valuable career path. Whether in the civil service, whether they were providing social services, or whether they were teachers teaching, each of those is a noble profession. Each of them is, in the spirit of the rabbi's remarks, a step towards making the world a better place. They showed me, and they showed me today, what commitment to a community means. So their example is the lesson that I have learned, and I'm still learning. Once, when I was working in Ukraine, I was visiting an elderly Jewish lady to assess the material services and the social services she was receiving in her home from the local Jewish community. One of my colleagues asked me as a joke, "Did you ever think that this is what you would be doing for a living? Is this what you imagined your career would look like?" And at that moment, I realized with total clarity that my mother had taken me as a child to visit older Jews in our community in Canberra, Australia, time and again, eat almost every weekend. I remember each of those older Jews. I remember their homes. And I realized how formative that experience had been for me. It showed me my family's commitment to community. So I can draw a straight line between what I do today and what I'm taught by my family. So here I am having, as I said, a regular meeting with farmers who are interested in working with us, with colleagues and officials in Ethiopia. I want to take a brief pause and ask my father to screen a 2-minute video that was shown on CNN earlier this year.
በጣም ታታሪ ገበሬ ነበር የኔ አባት ማለት ነው እና እሱ የማደንቀው በልጅነቴ እኔ ጉልበቴ እሱን ያህል ጠንካራ ባልሆነበት ሌሊትም በተኛሁበት ሁሉ በምነቃበት ሰዓት አስበዋለሁ። ይሄ ነው የልምድ መነሻ የሚሰሩት።
The spirit of Israel is dedication, determination. In Ethiopia, Doobov is an agricultural program where we work closely with the government. In Israel, there are many agricultural technologies like drip irrigation and hybrid seeds that can be beneficial to farmers here in Ethiopia to increase their yields. The bottom of the pyramid are, of course, the farmers who on average earn about $2.5 a day. It's critical that we invest as much resources to enable them to grow.
The problems that faced Israel a few decades ago when Israel was itself a developing economy sparked innovation. Drip irrigation is one example. We bring all of that innovation to our work with farmers in Ethiopia.
Drip irrigation is a technology where you'll be able to conserve water, and every drop of water goes directly to the roots of the plants.
Sustainability is critical. Once JDC finishes working with farmers, we want them to continue to have access to that technology. So this is a change not for a moment, not for a month, not for a year. It's a change for people's lives.
በሰው ኃይል ነው ሁሉ ነገር የሚሰራው። ጥቅም ምንድነው? በሰው ኃይል ተሰርቶም የቴክኒክ ጉድለት አለው። አሁን ላይ ግን አፈሩ ባለበት በወሰድነው ኮርስ መሰረት ካለበት አሁን ከፍቶ ከዛ በኋላ ላይ አትክልቱ የሚደርስበት ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። ፈጠነ መልኩ ውጤት ያስገኝ የሚችል ጥሩ የሆነ ቴክኖሎጂ።
What I really love about this project is that it does not create dependency. We're trying to empower smallholder farmers in Ethiopia who are a majority. And if they are adopting new technologies, using the right inputs, this is really transformational for the country.
ትልቅ ደስታ ይፈጥርልኛል። እኔ ለልጄ ላስተላልፈው የምፈልገውን እኔ የወሰድኳቸው ልምዶች የሚቀበለኝ ከሆነ ፍላጎቱ ካለ ያንን ማስተላለፍ፣ ሌላ እሱ ያንን ነገር የሚተካበት ሁኔታ እንዲፈጥር እፈልጋለሁ።
Thank you. Let me find my place. Okay. So the Joint as an organization it's a large organization, it's very ambitious, and it always aims to have an impact at scale. In Israel, our programs today touch close to 1 million Israeli citizens in different ways. At its peak, our work in the former Soviet Union, close to 300,000 Jews. We were helping close to 300,000 Jews. So it's a very bold organization. It's a very ambitious organization. So what's the problem that we're looking to tackle with Doobov, with Tikkun Olam Ventures? What's the challenge we're addressing? So to frame it very concisely, most of the world's poor are in developing countries. Most developing countries are predominantly agricultural. Most agriculture is in the hands of small-scale farmers, smallholder farmers. 80%, 90% of any developing country's agriculture is in the hands of small-scale farmers. And all small-scale farmers are chronically underproductive. They don't produce anywhere near what they could produce and anywhere near what they need to produce in order to bring prosperity to themselves and their communities, and in order to address the food security challenges that face many African countries and in time will face the entire world. In order for us to feed the world in the coming decades, we need to increase agricultural productivity, and most of the underutilized or untouched arable land in the world is in Africa. So that's the problem that we started by looking at. One of Africa's biggest problems is low productivity. And that in order for African countries to take a leap forward, they must improve systematically the productivity of smallholder farmers. If you were to go to Davos or any of the global leadership forums that take place, this precise problem is in the top 10 issues, the underproductivity of African economies. So we took this productivity problem and we developed a TOV program. And we had two lead insights. The first insight was that increasing agricultural productivity is the kind of problem that Israel solved for itself decades ago. Israel has specific expertise in exactly that kind of problem. And secondly, in order to sustainably impact productivity, you need to embrace the market. You need to embrace the private sector. One can't pursue handouts or grants. In order to reach scale and to be sustainable, you have to connect deeply with the private sector. And if the program that you generate makes sense from an economic perspective, then the private sector will pick up where the program starts and take it to scale and sustain it. Those were the two insights. We went to the fields. Literally, we went to the fields and we asked smallholder farmers, why is it that there is a gap between smallholder farmers in countries such as Ethiopia and existing agricultural technology like the drip irrigation system that you see in front of you? Why are there farmers over here and drip irrigation over there? And we found that there were three major obstacles. The first obstacle is finance. As you might imagine, most farmers don't have enough cash or can't get access to finance to make a significant purchase of technology. So the first obstacle is finance. They don't have the money. Secondly, agricultural technology companies, Israelis or any of them, aren't looking for smallholder farmers because they're a very, very difficult market to reach, to penetrate, and to serve. It doesn't take much imagination to realize that smallholder farmers are literally everywhere. They're everywhere. It's a very, very difficult market to serve. And so agricultural technology companies are instead looking to large-scale farmers or government contracts. They're not looking for the smallholder farmers. And the third obstacle is that smallholder farmers are very weak market actors. They are price takers. When they complete a season, traders drive around their communities looking at their crops, and when the crops are ready, the traders name a price, and the farmers don't have much choice. They have to take the price that they're offered, whether it's a good price, a fair price, or a poor price. So they're weak market actors. So in response to those three problems, we developed a program that has three major pillars. The first is access to loan finance. We established a $10 million loan fund with an Ethiopian bank, $5 million from the Ethiopian bank, $5 million from Jewish philanthropists. And that fund is designated to enable smallholder farmers to receive the kind of loans that they otherwise would not be able to secure from microfinance. So our loans are for more than $3,000, whereas microfinance might enable a farmer to receive a loan of $300. So the first part of our program is the Tov Loan Fund. The second is that we bring the technology, we broker the relationships between the technology vendors and the farmers. We bring them into the field. We facilitate the transactions so that the same agricultural technology companies that weren't looking for farmers are now in the fields, are now selling product to farmers and are servicing farmers. Alongside that, we develop the knowledge that farmers need to successfully adopt that technology. So that's the second pillar of the program. And the third is access to markets. We develop trading relationships between the farmers and supermarkets and consumer cooperatives and other institutions that are willing to commit to paying fair to good prices for the produce that our farmers generate. More specifically, what is the opportunity that we're offering farmers in our first country of Ethiopia? Why will we succeed in increasing their productivity? I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the idea of drip irrigation and are familiar with improved seeds, hybrid seeds as we call them. The package that we've designed, which includes drip irrigation, which includes improved seeds, enables a farmer to reduce his or her water consumption by up to 90%. It's a significant reduction in water consumption. The seeds that we provide, that the farmers purchase, ensure that they grow higher quality vegetables and fruit, which means that the vegetables they produce have a longer shelf life and are more nutritious. And overall, a farmer will at least double the quantity of, even better than doubling their yield on a small plot of land. So over a period of 4 years, these farmers will see their agricultural yields increase by a very significant multiple. They'll be able to pay back their loan and generate significantly more disposable income. That's the opportunity that we're offering farmers. This is an example of what one of the farms look like with which we collaborate. What have we done so far? We're now in our third year. We spent 2 years testing the model, testing the product, training locals so that they would themselves become the experts that support the local farmers. We've just hit 60 farmers in Ethiopia, and over the next 4.5 years, we will get to between 3,000 to 4,000 farmers that will grow beautiful hot peppers, just like the ones you see here. What is significant about this picture and about the 60 plots that we're working with now is not that just those farmers will benefit and those farming communities will benefit, but that if we succeed with Tov, we will have taken what we see as being a market failure, the gap, as I described before, between agricultural technology here and smallholder farmers over there. We will have looked at a market failure, and if we succeed, farmers like the ones in this picture will wish to continue to purchase agricultural technology. We will have succeeded in demonstrating to ag tech companies, Israelis and others, that the massive market, the massive population of smallholder farmers is not just a potential market, but is a market that can be served. Farmers can adopt technology successfully. Farmers can have access to finance. And thirdly, we will have convinced the local banks that it's worth lending significant money to local farmers. So when we step away, success will look like all of those entities continuing to transact. That's over the next, as I said, over the next 4.5 years, we aim to reach between 3,000 to 4,000 farmers. But in addition to that, because one of Tov's partners is the government of Israel, Israel's Ministry of Economy, we've taken on an additional assignment, which is to use our work with farmers in Ethiopia and in other countries when we reach them in the years ahead, to use our work with those farmers as a platform to introduce more Israeli entrepreneurs and innovators to communities, to these impoverished communities, to communities that are, as we say, at the base of the pyramid, and to generate new ideas, new products that can be transformational for them. So we took last year a delegation of Israeli startup businesses to meet our farmers. The gentleman you see here is, his name is Noam, and he has just developed a solar-powered pump that is both effective enough and cheap enough to be useful, even transformational for smallholder farmers. So we took representatives from 5 companies, 5 startup companies to Ethiopia, a number of companies that deal with solar power, a number of companies that deal with organic pest control, and also a company that deals with cold storage solutions to enable farmers to transport their produce in refrigeration to the market. The gentleman on the left here, his name is Itamar. He represents the company that developed an organic response to, I'm sorry, his name is Yaniv. He developed a product that that does pest control, responds to a very, very pressing need of smallholder farmers. And if you see the bottle, the small white bottle in the picture in the hand of Dene, that is a pest control solution that you can drink. It's not tasty, that's not what it's for, but it's that safe that you can drink it. And knowing Yaniv, and I think you can see him well enough, it's probably kosher as well. But we, as I said, we're interested in using our work with farmers to generate more solutions and more economic opportunities, both for Israelis and for, of course, Ethiopians. I want to conclude with a reference to this picture. It's a picture from the same delegation of Israeli entrepreneurs that came to Ethiopia with us last year. And the gentleman on the left, his name is Rafi Brum. And he represents a company that has developed a different solar power. And you'll see he's having a look at the kinds of diesel pumps that farmers currently use. And currently, the problem with diesel pumps, beyond the pollution, is that they cost a lot of money to operate. And for farmers, one of their biggest expenses is fuel or benzene. But the reason I want to conclude with Rafi is that just after we selected his company to join us on the delegation to Ethiopia, he came up to me and he said, I want to introduce myself in a different way than we did when we went around the circle and described our product. He said, I know the joint. I know the JDC. He told me his families, his parents survived the Holocaust. They were displaced persons, people after the Second World War. And they arrived to Israel on the Exodus. Rafi said, that he was, if you don't mind me sharing, he was conceived in Marseille and he was born after his parents arrived in Israel, or pre-state Israel even. And Rafi said, I couldn't believe that I can't believe that it's the joint that's inviting me to come to Ethiopia to see how my product can better the lives of Ethiopians and of Africans, because that's what his product does. I grew up with the joint. Our first set of cutlery came from the joint. Our crockery came from the joint. My family's blankets came from the joint. And over decades, he said, growing up in his parents' house, the joint was literally part of the furniture, but it was part of their identity. It was an understanding how an entity, a Jewish organization, it happens to be the joint, reached out and helped people at their time of greatest need. And he told me that until his mother passed away, she still had each of those items. She didn't want to give them away or dispose of them because they meant so much for her and her new life. So he said, Rafi said, while I was perplexed at first to hear that it was the joint that's inviting me to Africa, he said, at a more cosmic level, it's right. And that is the kind of work that Jews should be doing. That's the kind of work that Jewish values should be guiding us towards doing. Thank you very much for your time. I'm very glad to hear any questions or any comments. Thank you.
Any questions?
Apparently not.
Okay, then if not, then I would like to take the opportunity and thank Arieh for giving us a very interesting talk about his work in Ethiopia and how Israel is able to make its tikkun olam. And thank you very much.
Oh, the president?
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So Laila Tov and Sheyeh Chodesh Tov.
תודה רבה. Thank you so much.
It was very pleasant listening to you,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Yeah, very informative.
Yes.
Important. Yashar koach.
Excellent. It's because he has no accent.
Yopi. Laila tov, everyone. Chodesh tov. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. So I guess I end now.
You should say something.
Chodesh tov on the wolves.
Okay. No questions, no comments apart from that? Then I'll close the meeting down. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you, Ari, for
Thank you for arranging it.
contribution. Bye. Good night, all.
Thank you very much. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye now.